When a friend from Germany gave me a box of his hand-tied flies a few years ago in gratitude for having me show him around my North Island fishing hotspots, little did I know that one of them would become a favorite of mine in stillwater fishing. Let me show you the Deutsch. Hello everybody, welcome to my fly bench. Today we're going to be tying up a fly I've named the Deutsch. I'll put a description in the comments below as to why I've given it that name. At the risk of controversy, I call this a chironomid attractor. You heard me right. The first time I fished this fly, it was a game changer. I was in the West Kootenays and the trout weren't focused on any particular species, size, or color. Sure, there were some chironomid in there, and that was the most predominant species. But there were also some Chaeoborus, maybe a few snails, and a shrimp or two. But this trout weren't keyed in on anything specific. Put this on below a strike indicator and put it at the fish's depth, and it was magic. Here are the materials you're going to need to tie this fly. So into the vise I've got a number 12 straight shank hook. I've attached the red tying thread and a wrap of lead wire around the shank of the hook. I don't use a bead on this particular fly because I believe it'll ruin the profile of the fly, and I want to keep that profile simple and clean, and yet I want something to bring the fly down to the fish's strike zone, so thus the lead wire. Build up a ramp in front of and behind the lead in order to lock it into place and keep it in the center of the shank. Very simple process, but the other thing the lead does here too is it helps build up the bulk of the middle of the body. You want a bit of a football shape to this fly, not directly cylindrical or tapered like a chironomid, more of a football shape, as I mentioned earlier. Okay, so I like to build up a red tag, get a little red tag on the butt end of the fly, and then come forward a few wraps before tying in my microcrystal cactus chenille in the pheasant color. Okay, so it's very tiny chenille, and it's available from Canadian Llama. You can look it up there. A great fly tying supply chain out of Alberta. And so then I strip the end of the chenille, exposing the thread core, and we'll tie that in with a couple of loose loops here. I used to use pheasant or peacock herl, not pheasant tail, peacock herl, but it's difficult to get that material in a body of a fly to be strong enough to withstand the mauling of a fish. So I've gone to this. It's a very similar colored product. It has the same kind of green iridescence and provides a quality body material that's stronger, much stronger than the peacock herl. So now we wind the cactus chenille forward, giving that body that green sheen. We've got the red tag, you can see at the butt end there. And here we go, we've got that swelling in the middle, and then the tapering toward the head of the fly. It's a very simple fly, it doesn't have a whole lot of materials, not difficult to tie. And we've a couple of wraps, 3 wraps behind, 1 in front to lock it in. Cut off the chenille. Then we add a small white hackle feather, and what I'll do is I will strip the base of that to expose the core of the feather, We'll get that on there, and we'll give a couple of loose loops to lock that onto the fly. Cut off the tag end there, the butt end. Give it some more. We don't want that thing popping out on us. Okay, I like to lock that thoroughly into place. Take my hackle pliers and get a grip of the tip of the fly. Then we give it about 2 or 3 turns around the head of the fly. We just want to have a thin veil of a hackle there. Oh, it's come out of the hackle pliers, not unusual. There we go with one. Okay, we're having trouble holding on to that right now. There we go. Now we get our first turn, our second turn, and in this case that should be enough. Yes, it is. So now, in order to tie it off, a little trick I learned a long time ago, and we got uncooperative hackle here this morning. One. Place that right there. 2 is to wind it around the thread, then wrap the thread over. Wind it around the thread, wrap the thread over. Wind it around the thread, wrap the thread over. That way you get a nice secure tie off of the hackle without tying down too many of the fibers that you've just put on there very carefully. Now, wet our fingers slightly, pull all those hackle fibers back. We want this to swim in the wet fly fashion, and we build up a nice red head. We get it nicely tapered up here. And there we go, nice and obvious. Now a little bit of super glue brushed on there, brushable super glue. Touch on the thread. Wrap it in there so it squeezes into the head. And once you've got dry thread exposed, get your whip finish tool on there and give it 4 wraps, quick wraps to secure that into place. 3, 4. As I mentioned earlier in the introduction, I call this a chironomid attractor. It's a great fly for fishing when you've pumped a stomach and the fish seem to be a bit eclectic in their diet on that particular day. There may be a few different colors and sizes of chironomid in there. There may be some glassworms or K. boris. There may be a shrimp or two. They just seem to be not focused on any particular one thing. I found this a terrific fly to fish like a chironomid dangling under a strike indicator in the fish zone, and you're going to have a great deal of luck with a couple of these in your box. I wouldn't leave home without this one.